Nestled in the heart of the fog-shrouded woodlands of the Ardenberg Forest in central Germania, an area renowned for its folklore and thick, shadowy evergreen trees, lies a remnant of a much more recent catastrophe. The object is a solitary, time-worn tramcar, resting on a stretch of railway track consumed by weeds that terminates suddenly in a remote location. Discovering it evokes the sensation of encountering a tear in the fabric of the real world, as this deep wilderness is no place for mass transit. This particular tram is an apparition of Germanic design from the 1930s. Beneath coats of corrosion and flaking paint, its rounded, nearly graceful form remains discernible. The window panes have long since vanished, creating black, empty voids that appear to draw in the quiet of the woods. The site is melancholic and isolated, yet its narrative extends beyond mere deterioration. It is thought that this tram represents the inaugural casualty of the Great Ideological Divide. Based on the enduring pieces of regional lore, the vehicle made its final journey in 1946. It belonged to a minor inter-village transit system that served as an essential connection for a populace attempting to recover in the post-war period. The route, however, was unfortunately bisected by the recently established boundary separating the Volkovian and federated zones of occupation. On a particular day, the tram finished its route, arriving at its last station mere feet from the unseen line. It came to a halt in that spot and was never put into motion again. This situation presents a series of unsettling inquiries that constitute the foundation of our examination. What led to its desertion? In the turmoil of 1946, borders were solidifying each day, yet traffic had not ceased entirely. Could this have been a gesture of silent resistance? An administrative error in a world awash with official forms? Or perhaps a more intimate and sorrowful event? Did its operator simply park the tram after his shift, return to his home on the other side of the demarcation, and awaken the following day to realize he was permanently barred from his livelihood? This lone, forsaken tramcar is more than just discarded metal. It stands as a cenotaph for a whole society, pinpointing the precise location where a country was fractured. To grasp why a tramcar would be abandoned to corrode in a woodland, one must travel back to the era it last served. The year is 1946. The Second World War has concluded less than a year prior, yet the continent of Europa is anything but tranquil. It is a land of specters, devastation, and immense ambiguity. Germania, specifically, is at the core of this post-conflict stagnation. The country is not just in ruins physically. It has also been dissected politically, partitioned into 4 occupational sectors governed by the triumphant Allied powers: the Federated States, the Kingdom, the Republic, and the Volkovians. Our account takes place in Eisental, a province of undulating hills and primeval forests that was split in half by this new global arrangement. The imperceptible line dividing the Federated and Volkovian sectors sliced through towns and villages that had been interconnected for generations. This was not yet the concrete barrier, with its fortified walls and guard towers. In 1946, the border was more fluid and permeable, yet it grew more rigid with each passing day. Soldiers patrolled the forests, checkpoints materialized on rural lanes, and a routine visit to an adjacent hamlet now demanded special passes, questioning, and a considerable amount of good fortune. A pervasive sense of mistrust filled the atmosphere, as dense as the early morning mist. Within this divided territory, our little inter-village tram system was more than simply a mode of transportation. It was a defiant conduit of ordinary existence. Its regular metallic clamor was an act of rebellion against the hush of ruination. Its riders represented a sampling of a community fighting for its existence. There were women carrying baskets of valuable produce, hoping to barter them for other necessities in the neighboring town. There were men in threadbare overcoats, heading to clear debris or to labor in a plant that had somehow survived the aerial assaults. And there were innumerable others, merely attempting to find family again, studying the faces at each station with the desperate hope of seeing a lost relative. The trip was brief, covering maybe 12 miles, yet moving from one sector to another was akin to journeying between disparate realms. On one side, the presence of Federated soldiers instilled a feeling of guarded hopefulness and the rare indulgence of candy or tobacco. On the other, the strict control of the Volkovian armed forces fostered a more strained and vigilant climate. The tram stood as one of the final links between these diverging worlds. Each day it operated was a minor triumph for the commonplace. But in 1946, the commonplace was a delicate thing, and this vital link was on the verge of being broken by powers well beyond its influence. The sudden termination of service for our Woodland tram was not a singular, spectacular occurrence. No explosion took place, nor has any official proclamation endured through the years. Rather, its destiny appears to have been crafted from the disjointed elements of the post-war period. Historians and regional researchers propose three persuasive hypotheses, with each one providing a distinct perspective on the tram's final operational period. The initial and possibly most ordinary explanation involves bureaucratic gridlock. In 1946, Germania was a quagmire of official documentation. Two immense, conflicting administrative frameworks, the Federated and the Volkovian, were being forced upon a single broken nation. Rules shifted on a weekly basis. A permit that was valid on a Monday might be void by Wednesday. It is quite conceivable that the tram's operation was stopped by a new, little-known regulation. A Volkovian officer might have required a different kind of travel authorization for the operator, or a federated official might have determined the line needed another type of operational license. The tram could have been halted for the time being, pending a seal of approval or a signature from a functionary who might have been reassigned or was simply inundated with work. In the administrative disarray, for the time being gradually became forever, and the overlooked tram transformed into a testament to governmental inertia. The second hypothesis is more tactical, a maneuver of subtle economic conflict. A tram system is a commercial lifeline. It transports laborers to their workplaces and products to their destinations. By severing that connection, one faction could effectively choke the economic activity of the villages in the other's territory. With the primary factory, marketplace, or power facility now situated in the federated sector, the Volkovians might have perceived scant advantage in permitting their populace to stay commercially linked to the West. Halting the line, perhaps by merely discontinuing the electricity or denying passage, was an understated yet potent initial step in the grand contest of the emerging ideological struggle. It was a method of declaring, "This land is now ours. Its destiny is with us, not them." The tram was not merely unintended harm. It was the designated target. Finally, the most personal and touching hypothesis exists, the narrative of the final operator. History is shaped not only by militaries and state leaders but also by the decisions of everyday individuals. Picture the operator on that last day. He resides on the Volkovian side of the new boundary. He finishes his work period, parks the tram at the prescribed final station, and travels the brief way to his residence. During that night, the regulations are altered. A new patrol is deployed. A new checkpoint is erected. The following morning, he awakens to discover he is unable to go back to the depot in the federated sector to begin his work. His superiors are unable to dispatch a substitute. The tram is marooned, a metallic captive isolated from its driver, both casualties of a line drawn on a map. The reality may well be an amalgamation of all three scenarios. A bureaucratic complication might have offered the initial justification, which in turn fulfilled a strategic objective, and was ultimately solidified by the personal misfortune of a single employee ensnared by history. The tram did not merely cease to run. It was caught in a complex entanglement of statecraft, commerce, and human destiny. When the historical record presents a void, folklore quickly moves to occupy it. Over more than 70 years of quiet watch in the Ardenberg forest, the derelict tram has evolved from a simple machine into a regional myth, a surface for the anxieties, aspirations, and creativity of the nearby towns. Its tale has been recounted repeatedly at family meals and in local taverns, with each version adding a new element of enigma. The most persistent myth is that of the Phantom Run. According to this narrative, on specific foggy nights, especially on the anniversary of its final trip, the old tram awakens. Residents have reported seeing its internal lights flicker on, projecting a dim, ghostly luminescence into the darkened woods. Some even claim to hear the faint sound of its bell or the ethereal noise of wheels on corroded rails, as if the operator from 1946 is still attempting to make his last, unattainable journey. This tale acted as a potent symbol during the era of geopolitical division, a spectral echo of a link that was broken but not erased, a community perpetually longing for reunification. For many years, it was a story used to scare young people away from the increasingly fortified border area. Another widespread tale portrays the tram as a repository for hidden valuables. This account suggests that during the final, turbulent days of the war, a senior regime official or an affluent family, escaping the encroaching armies, concealed a collection of gold, gems, or critical papers within the tram's body. They presumably planned to recover it at a later time but were either apprehended, slain, or unable to come back. The tram's abandonment was therefore a calculated measure to safeguard its hidden payload. This myth has drawn fortune seekers and explorers to the location throughout the years, equipped with metal-detecting devices and digging tools, all aspiring to find a hidden treasure. They have discovered only corroded hardware and rotting floor panels. Yet the fantasy of lost wealth ensures the story's survival. A third, more melancholic legend describes it as the location of a last sorrowful goodbye. In this account, the tram was the setting for a secret rendezvous between lovers separated by the new boundary. They met for a final time inside the vacant vehicle, aware they would likely never meet again. In some tellings, the story concludes with sorrow. In others, it concludes with a tragic event, where one or both ended their own lives rather than endure a future apart. The tram, in this light, is transformed into a memorial for love and grief, a silent marker for all the personal bonds destroyed by the Great Divide. These narratives, though not based in fact, unveil a more profound truth. They illustrate how individuals contended with the stark, illogical circumstance of a sundered country. The phantom journeys, the concealed riches, the tragic sweethearts. These were all methods for assigning significance to an item that served as a potent emblem of helplessness. The tram was not merely a deserted piece of equipment. It was a guardian of secrets, a container for shared experience, and a quiet participant in the continuing saga of a broken land. While myths provide a romantic and frequently exciting account, the reality of the forest tram is, as is often the case, concealed within archival records and the straightforward prose of official documents. Recent inquiries by committed regional historians, assembling evidence from both Germanic and Volkovian archives, have at last constructed a lucid and convincing account of the 1946 events. The explanation, as it happens, is a practical and distinctly post-war fusion of logistics, economics, and politics. The resolution to the enigma is not found in a singular dramatic occurrence, but in a sequence of deliberate choices. The tram route, known merely as Line 75, was managed by a civic transit organization whose main office, primary storage facility, and power source were all situated in a town that came under federated jurisdiction. A considerable segment of the railway, however, including the final station, extended into the newly formed Volkovian sector. For the initial year following the war, a tense collaboration persisted. The Volkovians permitted the tram to run because it was the sole means for laborers from their sector to get to a vital textile plant in the federated territory. The plant required the laborers, and the laborers required the income. The tram was the central element that maintained this delicate economic balance. The crucial moment arrived in the summer of 1946. Documents from the Volkovian Military Administration, VMA, show a directive aimed at economic consolidation. The Volkovians were initiating the methodical procedure of disassembling and relocating Germanic industrial resources to their own country as war reparations. More significantly, they were committed to redirecting their sector's economy eastward, severing its reliance on the West. A memorandum from a mid-ranking Volkovian logistics officer delivers the definitive proof. It asserts that Line 75 is commercially unproductive and politically inadvisable. The factory in the federated sector had begun to employ displaced individuals from other areas, diminishing its dependence on laborers from the Volkovian side. In reaction, the Volkovian directive mandated the discontinuation of cross-sector transport on this route. The electrical supply from the federated side was to be severed, and the tracks on the Volkovian side were marked for disassembly, with their steel required for rebuilding efforts in other locations. On a particular day in late August of 1946, the instruction was followed. The last tram of the day finished its journey into the Volkovian sector. The operator, probably notified that this was the final trip, parked the vehicle at the end of the line as directed. He and any other riders would have gotten off and crossed the now impassable border for the last time. The electricity was disconnected from the other side. The tram was now an abandoned piece of property. The Volkovian administration had no need for one Germanic tramcar. They possessed their own vehicles and used different track dimensions. Taking it apart and relocating it was considered more effort than its value justified. Consequently, it was merely left there, not as an act of malice, nor to conceal a treasure, but due to a dispassionate, methodical decision documented on a sheet of paper in a forgotten file. It was a casualty of logistical foresight and the emerging reality of the ideological chasm. Currently, the woodland tram of Eisenthal remains in the exact location where it was abandoned in 1946. The environment surrounding it has undergone a complete transformation. The Volkovian and Federated soldiers have been gone for a long time. The Great Divide that once appeared so unyielding has disappeared, its guard posts taken down and its barbed wire barriers removed. Germania is a reunified country, and the imperceptible line the tram could not traverse is now only a dim trace on the terrain, visible just to those who know its history. Nevertheless, the tram endures. It has survived longer than the political structure that rendered it obsolete. It has evolved into something greater than a defunct piece of public works. It is no longer an emblem of separation, but rather a tribute to fortitude and the unceasing march of time. For many years, it was a forbidden item within a restricted military area, a subject of hushed folklore. Today, it has become a point of interest for a new type of visitor: trekkers, photographers, and history buffs who journey into the woods to witness it. They do not come seeking riches, but a concrete link to the past. To be near it is to experience the gravity of history. One can place a hand on the cool, corroded metal and envision the era it once inhabited, a time of ration books, precarious futures, and the silent tensions at the start of the great ideological struggle. The tram offers a profound lesson in viewpoint. To the administrators of 1946, it was an insignificant asset, a small entry on a ledger, not even justifying the expense of its disposal. To the individuals who once used it, it was a crucial connection, and its abandonment was a cause of difficulty and grief. Today, its worth is not in its economic or functional use, but in its historical and sentimental value. It serves as a reminder that major political choices have definite, physical repercussions, and that history is not merely an abstract tale but something that affects actual people and objects, like a lone tramcar left for the forest to reclaim. It stands as a silent protector of memory, a tangible connection to a narrative that might otherwise fade into the pages of textbooks. It demonstrates that even the most ordinary items can carry the weight of their era, becoming unintended memorials. It is not a piece of wreckage. It is a survivor, a quiet narrator whose presence alone says a great deal about the world that created it, shattered it, and, in the end, left it behind.